For more than 8 decades, the US dollar has reigned supreme as the international reserve currency. However, its purchasing power has been on a downward spiral ever since we bid farewell to the gold standard in the 1970s. Thanks to the Fed's money printing frenzy and the government's insatiable appetite for debts and deficits, countries worldwide are starting to lose faith in the dollar's stability. The coronavirus pandemic only added fuel to the fire, with many experts predicting the dollar's dethronement as the reserve currency. So the dollar's reign as the world's top currency is looking shakier than a Jenga tower at a toddler's birthday party. But what if the US dollar, the reigning champ of currencies, gets knocked off as the world's reserve currency? What are the perks of being the top in the global currency game? Let's dive in and find out. But before we get into it, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. To begin with, let's talk more about the functions of an international reserve currency. A national currency that is widely used as a reserve worldwide is one whose value is expected to stay constant and whose market for goods and services denominated in it is exceptionally large and active. Large, developed nations with a history of robust economies typically issue reserve currencies. Along with the US dollar, the euro, the Japanese yen, British pound, Swiss franc, and Australian dollar are all held in reserve. A recent International Monetary Fund report states that the dollar makes up 60% of all assets, making it the most commonly held currency. A variety of currencies were the preferred reserve currency of the world before the US dollar, but one currency eventually replaced them. No currency can continue to function as the global reserve currency indefinitely, as history's demonstrated. It's therefore not a question of whether the US dollar will eventually become less of the global reserve currency, but rather of when that day will arrive and how it'll affect the US currency. Now, you must be wondering about the perks of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. So here we'll tell you about 4 perks. Perk number 1, preserving the efficient functioning of global transfers. Maintaining the efficiency of international transactions is the primary benefit of having a global reserve currency and buy and sell trade connections between nations. When everyone's using the same money, trade's made simpler. This is especially crucial when trading with nations whose currencies aren't commonly used abroad or whose values fluctuate greatly. These countries rely on the dollar for purchases and sales, given that their trading partners are unlikely to accept their volatile currency as payment. Perk number 2, keeping transaction fees low. Now more than ever, the advantages of having a reserve currency are clear. If the money you have is reserve currency, you can use it to purchase goods with checks that nobody will cash. Compared to everyone else, you're far more able to spend more than you earn. In the past few years, the United States has consistently been doing just that. National spending's exceeded national revenue by more than 20% throughout the preceding 5 years. The US is the one issuing the current reserve currency, so transactions for Americans are less expensive. To conduct business, we don't need to exchange our dollars for foreign currencies. Our commercial rivals bear the burden of this work and the associated costs. In addition, we're not exposed to the full extent of exchange rate risk, especially when it comes to commodities, which are often priced and invoiced in US dollars. Perk number 3, expanding the US dollar's liquidity. More transactions are recorded in dollars when a large number of companies and people use the dollar. This improves the dollar's liquidity, making it easier to value a company's assets and to make loans more easily. In other words, U.S. firms have easier access to capital since the dollar is a reserve currency. You gain from the dollar standing as well, since these businesses might hire you or a family member. Perk number 4, debt continued to be transferable with ease. The U.S. finds it easier to repatriate its debt since the dollar is the global reserve currency. The dollar is becoming more and more in demand as an international reserve currency because of the public's evident faith in it. This makes dollar-backed instruments like U.S. Treasury bonds more appealing. These dollar-backed assets are frequently bought by nations to increase the credibility of their domestic currency supply. The money raised from the sale of these bonds is used to keep the standard of life of the American people stable and to pay for essentials. Now that you know how beneficial it is to possess a reserve currency, it's super important to know whether the US dollar will collapse soon and lose its reserve status. That being said, experts disagree on this matter. Some people believe that the dollar is in good shape, while others are wary of it because they've witnessed the dollar's purchasing power decline. The Federal Reserve estimates that 40% of international trade is conducted in dollars. The dollar dominates international cross-border transactions, making up more than 80% of all trades. That could soon change, though, as confidence in the dollar starts to decline globally. the dollar's purchasing power has been steadily declining. As the value of the dollar declines, more nations might find it more advantageous to transact in other stable currencies, surpassing the dollar as the global reserve currency. And it's actually taking place. The percentage of official reserves held in dollars globally has fallen to its lowest point in over 25 years. The fact that we've been living beyond our means is the main issue with the dollar being the most popular reserve currency in the world. We have a tendency to support banks and big businesses whenever they encounter problems. The U.S. also provided billions of dollars in relief to its citizens during the outbreak. The U.S. increased the amount of money in circulation to do that, which also resulted in price increases. The U.S. believes in the strength of the currency and expects other nations to do the same. So you must be so worried now if the U.S. dollar loses its role as the world's reserve currency, our quality of life will be really affected. Actually, by using the reserve currency status, the U.S. essentially allows the rest of the world to finance its needs and bear its debt. This is not going to last indefinitely. There could be a significant decline in demand for the dollar and goods backed by it as a result of the currency's further decline. This suggests the United States will not be able to sell its foreign debt. If the dollar loses its status as the reserve currency, it will increase the cost of our activities, which firms will pass on to customers. A declining dollar also increases the cost of international goods and services for American consumers and businesses. Here's a situation where prices, which are already rising, may rise because American businesses would have to exchange their dollars for other currencies in order to purchase the products. Interest rates are predicted to rise for both American consumers and businesses, raising the cost of everything from starting a factory to purchasing a home and resulting in higher costs. Not to be overlooked is the ease with which U.S. businesses may obtain financing. Should the dollar lose its status as the world's reserve currency, this will become more difficult and costly. In fact, experts refer to this rising cost of living as inflation, and it has recently emerged as a significant problem. Without nations dumping their currencies and a worldwide demand for the dollar, inflation is predicted to rise far further. Everyone should be concerned about this, especially those of us with investments and savings. It is possible that a significant portion of your hard-earned money may disappear if the U.S. dollar loses its position as the world's reserve currency. Stated differently, Americans' level of living could drastically decline. It's time to protect your possessions. Do you think the rest of the globe would be a happier place if the U.S. dollar didn't exist? Actually, many industry observers believe that the global economy would benefit more from a more equitable international reserve arrangement that relies less on any one currency. The path to get there would be difficult, though, and would have a significant impact on capital prices and exchange rates in many nations. Other countries' or regions' currencies, like those of the Eurozone, China, or Japan, would undoubtedly strengthen if their citizens used them more frequently. This would lower the cost of financing for the domestic sector and raise their purchasing power for goods and other items. So the dollar losing its reserve status seems to be a catastrophe. How to safeguard your personal financial resources by hedging your bets against the dollar. Everybody uses money for production, consumption, and sales. You need to move fast because hedging against the dollar is crucial, especially given its present downward trajectory. Regardless of what happens to the value of money, you can feel secure knowing that a little portion of your money is invested in gold and silver, protecting your financial future. Although the U.S. dollar serves as the global reserve currency, gold's rise over the past 50 years has closely mirrored the U.S. dollars, underscoring gold's primary role as a wealth store that helps you accumulate and preserve wealth over time. The more valuable the dollar becomes, the more dollars are required to purchase the same amount of gold. And the more gold goes up, the more the dollar's approaching collapse is reduced. Will you wait till the dollar and the value of your wealth fall even further if you haven't started converting a portion of your fortune into real gold yet? To sum up, as long as the eye can see, the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency is going to remain precarious. But the dollar needs to be replaced if it's to lose its hegemony. Despite the fact that China's currency has the greatest chance of winning, institutional and political issues will eventually force the yuan to trail the dollar for years, if not decades, before overtaking it. Did you find this video interesting? Share with us your thoughts in the comments section below, and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any of our videos.